Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. Monday Night Raw tonight was from the UBS Arena in Long Island, and it's a brand new arena. It just opened. It's the new home for the Islanders. So I think the arena opened up last week, but it was there at the new arena near the Belmont racetrack. But Monday Night Raw tonight, absolutely fucking awful show. Terrible show, in my opinion. The crowd there were like zombies at points in the night. And that, you could tell right there. If the crowd is not reacting, you can already tell. An awful fucking show it was. And they had trouble selling tickets for the show. I think from what I heard, they were doing a buy one, get one ticket for the show. I've heard that. I heard that somewhere. But I don't know if that's true or not, but I did hear that, they were doing a buy one, get one ticket for anybody who was going to the show tonight. Absolutely pathetic. But what do we get on the show tonight? We had Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor. The Raw Tag Team Championships were on the line. RKBro, Randy Orton, and Matt Riddle, they defend the title against Dolph Ziggler and Roode. The United States Championship was on the line. Damian defended the title against Cruz. And I'm like, what did Cruz do to earn an opportunity for a United States Championship opportunity? What do you do? Nothing. He comes out on Monday Night Raw, I think it was like last week, and he goes, I want to face you for the United States Championship. I want an opportunity at the United States Championship. So WWE, once again, with their illogical booking, gives Cruz a title shot. Just like that. Without him not, showing that he has an opportunity to face Damian for the United States Championship. They're just like, oh yeah, here you go. Apollo, we're going to put you in the match with Damian United States Championship on the line. There you go. Free pass. And then we had Ray and Dominik versus Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexandra. We had a 10-woman tag team match where it was Team Liv Morgan versus Team Becky. Yeah, that's what we had. A 10-woman tag team match. And the main event, it was Kevin Owens versus Biggie. You already know something's going to be up in that match at the end. Monday Night Raw tonight, like I said, awful fucking show. Absolutely terrible. So, let's get on with the review. Monday Night Raw opened up tonight with Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins ended up making his way out, and he got into the ring. Rollins got on the mic. He ended up saying, we might think he'd be in a bad mood after last week, but he's Seth frickin' Rollins, and no one can keep him down. Not even Kevin Owens. So he said not only Kevin Owens can keep him down, and neither can Biggie or Finn Balor or anyone else that gets in his way. Rollins ended up saying that he is in a good mood tonight. And then Seth Rollins acts like a 5-year-old. It's like WWE Creative wrote Seth Rollins tonight acting like a fucking 5-year-old, where he's going, I got a secret. Are you fucking 5 years old? I mean, who was writing this shit? They made Seth Rollins act like a fucking 5-year-old, saying, oh, I've got a secret. I'm surprised he didn't say, nah, 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 nah. So he ended up saying that he's got some breaking news. He ended up asking for a drum roll. We heard the effect of a drum roll play in. So Rollins then ended up announcing that he will be challenging Biggie for the WWE Championship at Day 1, the Day 1 pay-per-view on January 1st. So there you go. We have our first match announced for the Day 1 pay-per-view. Biggie versus Seth Rollins for the WWE Championship. So Rollins ended up going on about how this will be the first day of a new year and the first day of his WWE Championship reign. One that will be defining. And then out came Finn Balor. Finn Balor came out, he rushed into the ring, him and Rollins started brawling. Both Balor and Rollins ended up going out to the floor. Balor ended up taking Rollins over the barricade into the timekeeper's area. Balor then ended up tossing Seth Rollins over the announce table. He brought Rollins back into the ring. Rollins ended up knocking Balor off the apron out to the floor. And Rollins went and nailed a suicide dive to Balor on the floor. Balor ended up getting back up. He dropped Rollins with a sling blade on the outside. Balor then ended up grabbing half of the ring steps, and he smashed Rollins in the face with the steps. And Balor ended up bringing Rollins back to the ring. The referee ended up trying to restore order. Rollins then ended up telling the referee to ring the bell, so the ref rang the bell. And so then we had the match, Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins. So the match started off with Balor nailing the drop kick, sending Seth Rollins into the corner. So Balor was looking to capitalize on that drop kick, but Rollins ended up rolling out to the floor to regroup. Balor ran the ropes. He ended up taking Rollins back down on the floor. Balor ended up dropping Rollins. He went for the cover. Rollins kicked out at 2. So Rollins ended up climbing up to deliver a superplex to Balor, but Balor ended up shoving Rollins down to the mat. Rollins leapt back up to the top, and he delivered the superplex to Balor. So Rollins ended up following that up with the Falcon Arrow, and he went for the cover, and Balor ended up kicking out at 2. Rollins ended up going back up to the top. He was trying to go for the frog splash, which Rollins ended up going for it, and Balor ended up getting his knees up. So Balor ended up going for the cover. Rollins kicked out at 2. Balor then came back, delivered a double stomp to Rollins. Balor ended up waiting in the corner. Rollins ended up blocking the sling blade by Balor. So Rollins came back, delivered a sling blade of his own to Balor, and then he delivered a super kick to Balor's face. He went for the cover. Balor ended up kicking out at 2. So we had Rollins end up charging to go for the stomp. Balor ended up blocking the stomp with a sling blade. So Balor ended up dropping Rollins. He ended up going for the coup de grace, but Rollins ended up moving out of the way. And at the end of the match, we had Rollins delivering a rolling elbow to Balor's head, and then he delivered a stomp to Balor, and he went for the cover, and there you go. Seth Rollins ended up winning the match. But overall, the match was okay between Balor and Rollins, in my opinion. So then we saw Vince McMahon. Yes, Vince was on the show tonight, and Austin Theory ended up walking into his office. He ended up taking a seat. Austin Theory ended up asking Vince how he's doing. And Vince ended up telling Theory that he hates it when people ask how he's doing, and they really do not care. He ended up mentioning to Austin Theory about how he has an earache and an ingrown toenail. That's how he's really doing. Really? Do we really need to know that? Do we really need to know that Vince has an earache and a disgusting, gross, ingrown toenail? Like, seriously, do we really need to know that? So Vince ended up saying, oh, that's phony crap. But what wasn't phony was Austin Theory's match with Big E last week. So Vince ended up telling Austin Theory that tonight he will sit in his office with him to watch the entire show, and they will see if there are any surprises, and take a look to see if anyone expects the unexpected. And if they do, how will they respond? See if there are any surprises. There are no surprises on this show. Surprises. So Vince ended up saying that if Austin Theory ever steals anything from him again, he will kill him. He will kill Austin Theory. So that was pretty much basically that. So Austin Theory ended up sitting in Vince's office, and both of them watched the entire show. And pretty much that was that. And then we went to the ring, and we had the contract signing between Liv Morgan and Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship. So Becky Lynch was in the ring. Sonya Deville was also in there. So Sonya Deville ended up bringing out Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan made her way out. She got into the ring. She ended up taking a seat in the chair. And Becky ended up saying that she's welcome for having her first contract signing. You know, this is Liv Morgan's first contract signing that she has had. Becky Lynch ended up saying that to Liv is also welcome for last week's cheap shot and seeing some fire from her for the first time in a while. Becky ended up saying that last week she wanted to see if she could get Liv Morgan fired up, but then she did nothing. So Becky Lynch ended up going on about how it will take more than one punch. So Becky Lynch was wondering if Liv Morgan will prove her wrong. She ended up saying that she's already signed the contract and has nothing else to do. So Sonya Deville ended up announcing that the match will take place next week on Monday Night Raw. So it will be Liv Morgan versus Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship next week on Monday Night Raw. So Becky Lynch was taunting the Long Island crowd for not getting the match. She then took a shot at the Islanders not win a game because, of course, they're in the new arena. So Becky ended up going on, and Liv Morgan ended up telling her to shut up. Liv Morgan then signed the contract. Liv Morgan wanted to say that if Becky doesn't want her to hold back, she won't. And she ended up admitting that she got upset last week, but controlled her emotions with her fist instead of becoming a big, blubbering mess, like what Becky Lynch did after her match with Charlotte at Survivor Series. So Liv Morgan showed us, the footage of how Becky Lynch cried after her match with Charlotte in that interview. So Liv Morgan ended up saying that, who knew Big Time Becks cries like a little baby? Liv Morgan ended up saying that Becky is the reason her own friends are gone. And she was referring to, of course, her two friends, Sarah Logan and Ruby Soho. So she went on to say that it was because of Becky's bloated contract. So Liv Morgan ended up saying that Becky is nothing but a big bully. The same thing she once despised. She ended up saying that she's learned from Becky's past mistakes, and that Becky isn't the same person she once admired. So Liv ended up saying that she will not be Becky's number 2 and has learned from her past mistakes. She ended up saying that if last week's punch didn't teach Becky anything, then maybe this one will. So Liv Morgan ended up going to punch Becky Lynch, but Sonya Deville ended up getting in the way. She prevented Liv and Becky brawling. So Becky ended up going on about how Liv thinks she has what it takes to lead the division, revealing that she pitched a 10-woman tag team match to Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce. So Sonya Deville ended up showing us on the screen the teams. So for Team Becky, it will be, of course, Becky Lynch, Doudrop, Tamina, Queen Zelina, and Carmella. Yeah, like that is a good team right there. And for Liv Morgan's team, we had, of course, Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Nikki ASH, and Dana Brooke. And of course, you have to have Dana Brooke in that match because today was Dana Brooke's birthday. So you have to have Dana Brooke on TV. So Liv Morgan ended up saying that Becky is way too selfish to ever be a real leader. So she ended up accepting the challenge. Liv then tossed the mic, and both her and Becky were yelling at each other while Sonya Deville was standing in between them. And that was basically that. But overall, this segment was absolutely god-awful. God-awful. Becky, what she was wearing tonight, she was wearing a pink fur coat. And I'm like, did Elton John dress Becky Lynch tonight? That is something that you would see Elton John wearing. A fur coat and the glasses that Becky was wearing. That's something out of Elton John's closet there. Awful segment. Fucking awful. And then we saw Matt Riddle and Randy Orton backstage. Matt Riddle was ranting about channeling his inner Viper last week to defeat Dolph Ziggler. He ended up saying that he noticed how Orton hit the bro Derek on Robert Roode, and that he figured Orton would be dressed like him this week, or ride his scooter to the ring. Orton ended up saying that they are about to go to the ring for their title defense, because they would defend the titles against Dolph and Robert Roode. He ended up saying, so if Riddle thinks he will ride his scooter to the ring barefoot, then he is even more brain dead than he originally thought. So Orton ended up saying that he appreciates what Riddle is trying to do, but they don't need to dress up like each other to keep the titles. They just need to be more ruthless than anyone else, and they need to be 10 steps ahead of the competition. So Matt Riddle ended up understanding. He ended up asking Orton to close his eyes. So Randy Orton ended up closing his eyes, and Riddle ended up putting a wig on Randy Orton. Orton ended up opening his eyes. He looked in the mirror. Orton ended up giving Matt Riddle 2 seconds to take the wig from his head. So Riddle ended up taking the wig off of Randy Orton. And with the wig, I'm like, this is Brandy Orton. So Orton ended up telling Matt Riddle to never do that again. So Matt Riddle then apologized, and both of them head out to the ring. But this was awful. This was fucking awful. This was an embarrassment on Randy Orton. By Matt Riddle putting that wig on Randy Orton, I'm like, we're supposed to laugh at this? Embarrassing on Randy Orton. Might as well call him Brandy Orton in this little segment here. And then we had the match, Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode versus Randy Orton and Matt Riddle. Raw Tag Team titles on the line. This match was just meh, in my opinion. So the match started off with Dolph Ziggler catching Matt Riddle off guard. Ziggler unloaded on Matt Riddle, and he brought Matt Riddle into the corner. Roode ended up coming in. Roode and Dolph ended up delivering a suplex on Matt Riddle. So Roode ended up going for the cover. Matt Riddle ended up kicking out at 2. Roode knocked Orton off the apron. He started stomping away on Matt Riddle. So Roode and Ziggler did a quick tag. Ziggler ended up delivering a DDT. So Riddle ended up kicking out. Dolph ended up delivering some offense on Riddle. And Ziggler ended up hitting Riddle. Ziggler started unloading on Riddle in the corner. He ended up missing a flying splash. And Ziggler ended up smashing into the top turnbuckle. Riddle ended up crawling to go for the tag, but Dolph ended up stopping him from getting the tag to Randy Orton. Riddle ended up kicking Dolph away. Orton ended up coming in. So Orton ended up unloading on Dolph. He knocked Roode off the apron. Orton then delivered a power slam to Dolph. Orton ended up grabbing Ziggler for the second rope drape and DDT. Roode ended up pulling Ziggler out to the floor. So Ziggler got back. So Ziggler ended up pulling Orton to the floor. Orton ended up fighting off both Ziggler and Roode. So Orton ended up slamming Ziggler face first into the announce table. Orton then ended up going to slam Dolph into the announce table, but Ziggler ended up sliding out. He ended up delivering a super kick to Randy Orton. So Matt Riddle ended up running over. Roode ended up slamming him on top of the announce table. So as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we had Roode and Ziggler end up double teaming on Randy Orton. Roode delivered a neck breaker to Orton, and he went for the cover. Orton kicked out too. So Roode was grounding Orton with a headlock. Orton ended up trying to fight up, but Roode ended up muscling him back to the mat. And Orton ended up countering a suplex, and he nailed a suplex of his own to Roode. And at the end of the match, we had Dolph end up going for a super kick. It got caught by Orton. Orton ended up rolling Ziggler up. Ziggler ended up rolling through. And Orton ended up coming right back with the RKO on Ziggler. Which I liked this spot in the match where Orton rolled up Ziggler. Ziggler ended up rolling. And Orton ended up countering it into an RKO. So I like how the way that Dolph ended up selling that RKO by Orton. So there you go. Randy Orton and Matt Riddle end up winning, retaining the Raw Tag Team titles. Overall, the match was just meh, in my opinion. And then we had Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins was walking backstage. Kevin Owens ended up approaching him. Kevin Owens was wearing a old school Survivor Series shirt, which was cool. The old Survivor Series logo on the shirt. Kevin Owens ended up bringing up Rollins' news from earlier. He ended up saying that he's not the only one with big news. Kevin Owens ended up telling Rollins that Adam Pearce told him that if he can beat Biggie tonight, he will be added to the title match at day one. So Rollins ended up asking if he has any more jokes. Rollins ended up saying that he can't believe that Kevin Owens could be added to the match at day one. So Kevin Owens ended up telling Seth Rollins to go ask Adam Pearce. And Rollins ended up saying that he will ask Adam Pearce because he knows that Kevin Owens is a liar. So pretty much that was that. So if Kevin Owens end up winning the match, he will be added to the match at day one. So it will be Kevin Owens versus Biggie versus Seth Rollins. So we'll see how that goes when I get to explain that match. And then we had Edge end up coming out. Edge ended up returning tonight. He's been out for a month. So Edge made his way out. Got a pop from the Long Island crowd. So Monday Night Raw went to commercial. And then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Seth Rollins ended up approaching Adam Pearce in the back. Rollins ended up asking about Kevin Owens being added to the WWE Championship match between him and Big E at day one. If he can beat Big E in the match tonight. Adam Pearce ended up saying that this isn't true. He hasn't even seen Kevin Owens today. So Rollins ended up thanking him. He ended up telling him to have a good Raw. And Adam Pearce ended up sending well wishes to Seth Rollins. So Sonya Deville ended up walking up. She ended up asking, what was that about? Adam Pearce ended up mentioning Kevin Owens telling that lie to Rollins. And Sonya Deville ended up saying, it's not a bad idea. So that was that. And then we went back to the ring. Edge was in the ring. Edge was on the mic. He ended up saying that this is the best job in the world and that he missed everyone. Edge ended up saying that he's back. and we last saw him beating Seth Rollins at Crown Jewel inside Hell in a Cell. Edge ended up saying that, believe it or not, Rollins deserves to be the number one contender for the WWE Championship because Rollins is operating on another level. Edge ended up saying that he's back on Raw and there's a whole new set of opponents to sink his teeth into, like AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Biggie. He ended up saying that it's really exciting because everything is wide open. And I like to see a match with Edge and AJ Styles. If WWE books it good, we might be seeing at WrestleMania next year, Edge versus AJ Styles. And I think that will be Edge's match for WrestleMania next year, in my opinion, against AJ Styles. And that would be a very good, entertaining match there. So then we had The Miz end up returning. Of course, The Miz was on Dancing with the Stars. He ended up losing. He got eliminated. So now he's back on Monday Night Raw. He made his return tonight. And he came out along with his wife, of course, Maurice. So we had a video package highlighting The Miz on Dancing with the Stars. So Miz was on the mic after the package of the highlights of him on Dancing with the Stars. And Miz ended up saying that he can't believe that they gave Edge the big return treatment. Miz ended up saying that Edge's career now amounts to living for big comebacks, getting injured, and coming back. Meanwhile, he has been representing WWE on one of the biggest TV shows. Of course, mentioning Dancing with the Stars. So Miz ended up going on about how he still works injured, and that he's always promoting the company. But he doesn't get the big return or pyro display or fan pops now that he returned. He ended up saying what really irks him and pisses him off is that one of the biggest female superstars, Maurice, is back. But he had to listen to Edge and how he isn't even on his radar of potential opponents. So Edge ended up poking fun at The Miz for his Dancing with the Stars. Maurice ended up getting on the mic, and Maurice ended up saying that while Edge was busy chopping wood, her husband was being the most charismatic and entertaining on Dancing with the Stars. Edge ended up poking fun at The Miz for his placement on the show. Miz ended up saying that he placed where he did because the WWE fans forgot to vote for him. So that's the only reason why he got eliminated, according to him. I mean, who watches Dancing with the Stars? So Miz ended up saying while he was dancing with the stars, Edge was dancing with a body full of injuries. Edge ended up believing that Miz came out to interrupt him because that immediately puts him into the main event picture. Edge ended up saying that he could take the easy route and get the fans to chant, "Miz sucks." Which Edge ended up doing that, so he had the fans chanting, "Miz sucks." So Miz was like, "How dare you?" And he was like, "How dare the fans?" Miz ended up saying that he is an era-defining superstar and that he deserves respect. He ended up saying 6 months ago he was WWE champion, which he only lost the title. He only lost the title a week later. He won it on Monday Night Raw and then lost it a week later to Bobby Lashley. So Miz was like, when was the last time Edge held the title? So Miz was talking trash. He ended up saying that Edge was great in the ring and had a career most dream of. He ended up saying that he surpassed him a long time ago. And in his opinion, Edge should have stayed home for good. And that he fought with every fiber in his being to get this window back. Edge ended up saying that every guy in the locker room wants to stand across from him to test themselves. And there is mutual respect there. Something Miz knows nothing about and could have had and could still have. And comes out here and bitches and moans about what he don't have. Edge ended up saying that Lil Mizzy must need a pat on the back. Edge ended up saying that he will give Miz a pat on the back. And Edge ended up going on about how the Miz made it here in the ring with him, coming from Tough Enough, and that he worked the WrestleMania main event against John Cena with The Rock as the special enforcer, and won. He ended up going on praising and props for the Miz, saying that he made it further and higher than anyone thought he could or would, except Miz himself, as he thought it, believed it, and made it happen. Edge wanted to say that the big difference between him and the Miz is he fought with every fiber of his being to get the small window back, while the Miz uses this to get his next endeavor, which is a reality show or a dance competition, while leaving his partner to get fired. Of course, Edge was referring to Miz's former partner, John Morrison. John Morrison getting released. So Edge went on to say that Miz expects respect while he earns it, while Edge earns it. So Miz then took off his shades. Both him and Edge have a stare down. Edge dared the Miz to jump so that they can do this right now. Edge ended up dropping the mic. Miz ended up asking the fans if they want to see him and Edge dance. Miz ended up saying no. So he ended up dropping the mic. Miz and Maurice end up getting out of the ring. And that was that. But out of all the opponents for Edge, you pick an opponent for him, and it's the fucking Miz. So there you go. That's going to be Edge's next opponent, the Miz. And the only reason why the Miz end up returning tonight is because of what they did on AEW, where CM Punk ended up calling MJF a Miz Light. So that's the only reason why the Miz ended up returning. And WWE, they tried to do here with what AEW did in that amazing segment that opened Dynamite this past Wednesday between CM Punk and MJF. They tried to do it here, and it failed. WWE copying AEW with this segment here. This was the PG version of Punk and MJF. Only here, it's Edge and The Miz. That was that. So then we saw Sarah Schreiber. Sarah Schreiber was backstage with Omos and AJ Styles. Schreiber ended up asking them if Styles had any insight into why the Profits used the fire extinguisher in their match last week. So Styles ended up asking if this is some kind of cruel joke. Styles ended up saying that the Profits used the fire extinguisher because they cannot defeat him and Omos. So Styles was wearing these shades, he was wearing glasses because he couldn't see. He was blind from the fire extinguisher. And he once said that he couldn't see his own reflection in the mirror this morning. He even said that Omos even had to trim his beard. Styles went on to say that the doctors aren't sure if he will regain his vision. So Styles ended up saying that Street Profits sprayed all kind of chemicals into his eyes, literally giving him the smoke. And he was like, that's okay, because where there's smoke, there's fire. So Styles ended up promising the Profits are going to get burned. So Styles and Omos end up walking off. Omos ended up helping Styles, to where, they were going. And that was that. So then we had the Street Profits versus the Alpha Academy, Chad Gable and Otis. The Profits end up coming out first. And then we had Otis and Chad Gable come out. And AJ Styles and Omos end up making their way out. Omos was guiding Styles to the announce table. So we had the match start off with Otis and Montez Ford. Otis ended up going to work on Montez Ford, ended up dropping him over the top rope. Gable ended up coming in. He ended up launching Montez Ford out of the corner with a monkey flip. So we had Gable and Otis end up double teaming on Montez Ford. Gable ended up doing a surfboard submission to Montez Ford. So he went for the cover. Montez Ford ended up kicking out. Ford ended up mounting some offense on Gable. And Gable ended up catching him in midair with a Northern Light suplex. He went for the cover. Ford ended up kicking out too. Styles then ended up knocking Dawkins off the apron. And Otis ended up coming in. He ended up going to work on Montez Ford. Montez Ford ended up fighting back out of the corner. Gable ended up coming back in. He ended up stopping Ford from tagging in. Dawkins ended up getting the tag, started unloading on Chad Gable. He ended up knocking Otis down on the apron. Dawkins then delivered a overhead suplex on Gable. So Otis ended up coming in. Dawkins ended up sending him out to the floor. Dawkins then delivered a double underhook suplex to Chad Gable and then splashed into the corner. He followed it up with a spine buster. Ford ended up coming in. Ford ended up going up to the top. And we had both Gable and Otis ended up pulling Dawkins to the floor, launching him into the barricade. At the end of the match, the Profits ended up winning, where Ford ended up going up to the top. Styles, he was able to see. He leapt to the apron, and Ford ended up kicking Styles away and allowed Gable to leap up onto the top turnbuckle with Montez Ford. Ford ended up countering, knocked Gable to the mat, hit the frog splash, and there you go. Street Profits ended up winning the match. Overall, match was awful. Match was god-awful. And then we had Vince McMahon and Austin Theory backstage. You know, they were still in Vince's office. Vince ended up asking Austin Theory what he thought of Styles' surprise. Like, that was a surprise? Like, were we all supposed to believe that Styles was really blinded and that he couldn't see because of the fire extinguisher from the Profits last week? I didn't buy it. So Austin Theory ended up saying that it was pretty good. And Vince ended up thinking that it was horrible. And that you could see it coming from a mile away. Of course it was horrible. You approved of this because of creative coming up with this. So Vince ended up saying that the Street Profits probably saw that coming from a mile away. So he ended up telling Austin Theory to be more attentive and to look at him when he's talking to him. So that was that. And then we had Damian Priest versus Apollo Crews. United States Championship was on the line. What did Apollo Crews do to earn an opportunity for the United States Championship? What did he do? Absolutely nothing but go out there, get on the mic, bitch to Damian Priest, and be like, oh, I'm coming for that United States Championship. You know, I want that United States Championship. So typical WWE with their illogical booking, they are like, you know what, Apollo? You don't have to compete in the match to prove to us that you get this opportunity for the United States Championship. We're just going to slide you in the match. There you go. You don't have to compete. You could face Damian Priest, and we'll put the title on the line. That's typical WWE with their illogical booking. So Apollo Crews earns an opportunity for the United States Championship by not doing nothing. Like I said, WWE illogical booking at its finest. And not in a good way. So we had Damian Priest end up coming out. Damian Priest, of course, is from here in New York. So he made his way to the ring. And then Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial. Kevin Owens was backstage. Seth Rollins ended up approaching him. And Seth Rollins ended up calling Kevin Owens a liar. And, once again, Seth Rollins acting like a fucking 5-year-old, going, liar, liar, liar. It's bad enough that he said early in the night in his opening segment where he goes, I've got a secret. If that wasn't worse, we had to have him here saying, lie, lie, liar to Kevin Owens, teasing him. Awful. Fucking awful. So, Seth Rollins was teasing Kevin Owens over what Adam Pearce said earlier about the main event for day one with Biggie and Seth Rollins for the WWE Championship. Kevin Owens ended up telling Rollins that he's not lying and that he will be added to the WWE Championship if he wins against Big E. Rollins ended up taunting him some more. Kevin Owens ended up walking off, and that was that. Just absolutely fucking awful. Rollins acting like a 5-year-old still with the liar, liar, liar. Awful. God fucking awful. And then we had Apollo Crews end up making his way out with Commander Aziz. And the match got underway. So we had Priest end up grounding Apollo Crews by his arm. Apollo Crews ended up fighting back. He retreated out to the floor. Priest ended up following out to the floor, and Commander Aziz ended up getting in his way. So because Commander Aziz got in his way, Apollo Crews ended up taking advantage of the distraction, and he leapt off the apron with a flying knee to Damian Priest's face. So Monday Night Raw came back from commercial. Apollo Crews was in control of the match. Apollo Crews then delivered a powerbomb and a standing moonsault to Damian Priest. He went for the cover. Priest kicked out at 2. So there's a point where Damian Priest ended up fighting back from his knees. Apollo Crews ended up throwing strikes at him. And there was a point where Commander Aziz ended up getting involved, where Commander Aziz ended up taking Damian Priest's legs out, and the referee wasn't looking, and the referee saw something a little bit fishy out there. So he ended up ejecting Commander Aziz from ringside. So Apollo Crews and Commander Aziz were arguing with the referee, and Damian Priest ends up picking his head up, and he snapped. His eyes were bulging out. He was pissed off. It looked like he was hulking up. It was like, Hulk Priest. So he ran back into the ring. He started unloading on Apollo Crews in the corner. Priest ended up knocking Crews to the apron. Ended up nailing the South from Heaven from the apron. Priest ended up following that up with the Reckoning on Apollo Crews. He went for the cover. And there you go. Damian Priest ended up winning the match, retaining the United States Championship. Overall, very meh match. Obviously, we knew that Damian Priest was going to retain the title. So he retained the title in his home state. And then Seth Rollins was backstage. He ended up approaching Sonya Deville and Adam Pearce. Seth Rollins was telling both Deville and Pearce about how Kevin Owens is still going around lying about day one. So Rollins ended up thinking that it's a bad look for Monday Night Raw, and that they should do something about it, that Deville and Adam Pearce should do something about it. So Adam Pearce ended up bringing up how Sonya Deville thought Kevin Owens' lie was a good idea. And he agrees. So Rollins was pissed off. He was ranting about how his shot at day one is his match, and that Adam Pearce lied to him. He was like, you lied to me, you lied to me. So Rollins was seated and he walked off, and that was that. Once again, more Seth Rollins acting like a fucking child. You lied to me, you lied to me. So then we had Rey and Dominik Mysterio versus Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. Did I give a shit about this match? No. Absolutely not. We had Rey and Dominik end up coming out. And then Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander were out there. Match started off with Shelton and Dominik going at it. And we had Dominik end up doing a takedown on Shelton. Shelton then got back up, started manhandling Dominik. Cedric ended up coming in. And Shelton ended up hitting a suplex on Dominik. Cedric ended up launching himself from the apron with a senton. Went for the cover. Dominik kicked out at 2. Cedric ended up going for a suplex, and Dominik ended up countering that. Went for a roll-up, and Cedric ended up kicking out at 2. Cedric got back up, delivered a clothesline, and Cedric then delivered a suplex to Dominik. Went for the cover. Dominik kicked out at 1. So we had Shelton Benjamin taunting Rey outside. He ended up going for a back suplex. Dominik ended up countering, ended up decking him. Rey came in, started unloading on Shelton Benjamin. Rey then delivered her Karana. And we had Cedric end up coming in, and Cedric and Shelton end up double teaming, and Rey end up fighting back, nailing the drop kick. And we had the Mysterios later on in the match do a double 619 to Shelton and Cedric. Dominik ended up going up to the top. Rey ended up taking Shelton down at ringside with a senton. And Dominik then nailed the frog splash on Cedric. Went for the cover. And there you go. Rey and Dominik ended up winning the match. Overall, match didn't even care for. Just a very match. And then we had the 10-woman tag team match, where it was Liv Morgan's team. It was Team Liv, Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Nikki ASH, and Dana Brooke versus Team Becks, Team Becky's team. You know, Becky Lynch, Doudrop, Tamina, Queen Zelina, and Carmella. And I had to laugh when Becky's team ended up coming out with Tamina standing back there. I'm sorry, Tamina looked like she did not belong there. She didn't. And I laughed there. Because Tamina was just there, alongside Becky and Zelina, Carmella, and Doudrop. She was just there. And I'm like laughing because I'm like, she doesn't belong there. But this match was terrible. Match was awful. Of course, we had Carmella wear that stupid, ugly mask. Every time she puts on that mask, it just gets uglier and uglier every time it's on her face. Why does Carmella need a mask on her face? Like, seriously. So Becky ended up approaching, but Liv ended up decking her in the face. We had Liv do a high knee in the corner, kept control of the match. Liv ended up dropping Becky again, ended up missing hip attack in the corner. We had later on in the match where Rhea Ripley ended up clotheslining Carmella hard. Looked like maybe Carmella had a concussion maybe. At the end of the match, we had Liv Morgan end up blocking a Samoan drop by Tamina. She ended up driving the knee into Tamina's back. She then catched Tamina and laid out Tamina with the Oblivion. So there you go. Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley, Nikki ASH, Bianca Belair, and Dana Brooke end up winning the match. Post-match, Becky ended up coming into the ring, started unloading on Liv Morgan. Doudrop ended up attacking Bianca Belair in the ring. Carmella ended up taking out Rhea Ripley, sent Rhea Ripley into the barricade. Bianca Belair delivered a spinebuster to Doudrop. And Liv ended up blocking the manhandle slam. Then she ended up dropping Becky with the Oblivion. Liv ended up kicking Becky out to the floor. And she then stood tall in the ring with Dana Brooke, Rhea Ripley, Nikki, and Bianca Belair. And then we hear Becky end up yelling out, "Where's my title at?" And that was that. Overall, Match was fucking terrible. And then we had Vince McMahon and Austin Theory backstage. Vince ended up asking Austin Theory if he thinks Becky Lynch's team expected what happened. And he didn't. So Vince ended up saying, you have to expect the unexpected. So Vince ended up going on about surprises and how you can get screwed if a real surprise is coming your way. So Austin Theory ended up understanding that. So Austin Theory was looking to the door, and Vince was like, stop looking that way. And that was that. Then we had another vignette for Veer Mahaan coming soon to Monday Night Raw. Veer Mahaan, he's going to appear on Monday Night Raw. They're going to use him. They're going to build him up for a little bit. And then he's going to be taken off TV and in catering. That's what I see what WWE is going to be doing with Veer Mahaan. Who cares about Veer Mahaan? Guy will be off TV in, I predict, 3 weeks. So then we had Kevin Patrick. Kevin Patrick was backstage with Biggie. Kevin Patrick ended up asking if there's any added pressure of Kevin Owens possibly being added to the day one match against him and Seth Rollins, against Biggie and Seth Rollins for the WWE Championship. Biggie ended up saying no. He ended up saying that he fears no man, and that he fears no Kevin Owens. He ended up saying that he understands it would be harder to retain if there are two challengers. He ended up saying, but once he beats Kevin Owens and rids himself of this scourge, it will be him and Rollins, man versus man, at day one. And Big Am saying that he best believe he plans to kick off the new year with a bang by retaining the WWE Championship. So that was that. And then we had Vince McMahon and Austin Theory. Vince ended up asking Theory if he's enjoyed himself. Austin Theory ended up saying that he did enjoy himself tonight, and that he's had a great time being in Vince's office. Austin Theory ended up saying that he's learned to expect the unexpected and be prepared for surprises. So both Vince and Austin Theory end up getting up. They end up saying goodbye and goodnight. And Vince ends up slapping Austin Theory, putting Theory right back down in the chair. So Vince ended up sitting back down. He ended up saying that Austin Theory has a lot to learn. So there you go. That was that. Main event. Biggie versus Kevin Owens. If Kevin Owens ends up winning the match, he will be added to the WWE Championship match at day one. But the match was okay in my opinion. We had Biggie and Kevin Owens. They started off the match swinging at each other. Biggie ended up beating Kevin Owens down in the corner. And we had Seth Rollins out there. He was on commentary for the match. So Kevin Owens ended up mounting some offense on Biggie. He ended up kicking Biggie in the head. They ended up running the ropes. Biggie ended up leveling Kevin Owens with an uppercut. And Biggie ended up going for the cover. Kevin Owens ended up kicking out too. Biggie took Kevin Owens back into the corner, started beating Owens down. Biggie ended up shoving Kevin Owens out to the floor. He ended up sending Kevin Owens into the barricade. And then he sent Owens face first into the announce table. So Biggie ended up bringing Owens back to the ring. Biggie ended up delivering a quick wall-up, which Kevin Owens ended up kicking out too. Kevin Owens got back up, fighting back, started kicking Biggie in the gut. He ended up taking out Biggie's leg with a chop block. And Kevin Owens ended up dropping an elbow into Biggie's knee, which was hurt. Started working him over. And we had Rollins chanting for Big E as he was taunting Kevin Owens. So Kevin Owens was talking trash to Rollins while Rollins was seething as he went back to the announce table. There was a point where Owens ended up slapping Rollins in the face, which sent Rollins' headset flying. So, at the end of the match, we had Kevin Owens win the match by disqualification because Rollins ended up coming into the ring and up attacking Kevin Owens. So Rollins was continuing stomping away on Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens ended up going out to the floor as Biggie ended up getting back up. Rollins then ended up delivering super kicks to Biggie, and he delivered a stomp to Biggie in the middle of the ring. So it was announced that Kevin Owens wins by DQ, and he is now added to the WWE Championship match at day 1. So that was that. Kevin Owens ended up celebrating on the ramp. So there you go. So now it's going to be a triple threat match for the WWE Championship at day 1. Well, overall, Monday Night Raw tonight, awful show as always. God awful, absolutely terrible. But anyways, that's it for the Monday Night Raw review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all Wednesday night for AEW Dynamite. So until then, see you all later.